I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. So good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good to see you all here.
See you too.
What brings you here on a Tuesday evening?
Meditation.
Meditation.
Enlightenment.
Enlightenment. Good luck with that.
Even a little bit.
Even a little bit. Make sure you're aware of it. Make sure you hang on to it. Make sure you tell people about it. Because that's the only way enlightenment is real. What else? What brings you here on a Tuesday? Anyone here for the first time? In the back, why are you here?
Meditation
Meditation.
and to get out of my own way.
But aren't you here?
Well, it must be,
So aren't you still in your way?
yeah.
Yeah. I was making sure. I don't know if there were two of you. If you left one of you outside and the other one's here. No?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm unified, but
You're not sure what?
if I'm whole or one, but I'm glad I'm here.
I'm glad you're here too. Yes. Why do you want to meditate?
Are you still speaking to me?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, just to have a little peace.
Yeah. Why do you not have peace?
It's kind of a tough question.
It's a tough road.
Like,
Think about it for a second. Why do you not have peace?
I think my mind is swirling around, and I don't feel centered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you think your mind is swirling around and you don't feel centered.
That is correct.
Yeah. So raise your hand if you think your mind is swirling around. This is great because you're all the way in the back. So if the person up here asked the question, they wouldn't be able to see every single hand in the room go up. All right. Now let's do this one more time. Anyone in the room not feel centered? There you go, my friend. Not only can you be in your own way, all of these people can be in your way as well. So I'm glad you're here. What's your name?
My name's Paul. Thanks
Paul.
for-
Welcome to the Dharma Bum Temple.
I appreciate it.
Yes, I promise not to spend the whole hour focused on Paul. But actually, I kind of would like to because I think we could entertain and educate everybody over the next 45 minutes, probably pretty well, is my guess. But I won't do that as much as I really want to right now. I'm fighting the urge to just focus on Paul for the next 40 minutes. All right. Anyone else here for the first time after that adventure that wants to share why they're here? Yeah. All right. I think that's enough for now. Just wanted to waste a little time until everybody showed up. So we'll do meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin, especially if you're new. Nothing's going to happen to you. All right, you're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long and drives you crazy all day long and is in your way all day long is not going to shut off. It's not going to stop, and it won't think nothing. Right? When we do this practice, your mind is going to continue to race. When it races, recognize you're lost in thought. You just want to try to come back to present moment. Right? You don't want to judge yourself. You don't want to ask yourself, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Especially for those who might be new. We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds, lots of them. Okay? Sounds inside the room, sounds outside the room. This is life. Life is filled with chaos and sounds, and we're going to learn to just get quiet and still within all of the chaos and the sounds. You won't think nothing. That's most important, especially if you're new. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushion, just try to slide to the front third, pushing the stomach forward a little bit. Allowing the shoulders to relax. If you're on the benches or chairs, same thing. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap. Whatever's comfortable. I'll suggest closing the eyes or slightly open, whatever you prefer. Mouth will be open or closed as well. Most important, don't expect anything, but to sit and breathe. And again, starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where is your mind? Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each sensation. yet concerned with nothing, but sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. Most important for the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. And ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. And most of us, well, let me just change things. Paul, how do you feel?
I feel okay. I feel like the anxiety before meditation is outside of me a little bit. So I do feel a little bit more centered. I feel as if I'm observing.
Great. Had you ever done meditation before?
In the past I have.
In the past, okay.
Not in a very long time.
Yeah. Great. I say the same thing after every single meditation for the last probably 12 years. But I wanted to change it tonight. Still fighting that urge to not spend the whole night trying to help Paul. You know, what you just said, which is really, I think, important for all of us, is to recognize that you became an observer of the anxiety. And if we begin to observe what is outside of us, we recognize that it's not ours. It's this whole idea of getting out of our own way, right? One response I could say to, I came here to get out of my own way is then why did you bring yourself here? Right? Why didn't you leave yourself there? And when you look at the heart of the Buddhist teachings, what you begin to understand is that this whole idea of non-self, and someone asked about that recently, doesn't mean you don't exist, it doesn't mean you're not real. It just means you're a complete illusion. That you are absolutely different from how you perceive yourself to be. And this entire practice is about becoming the observer of these emotions that arise. When we observe them, we recognize we are not them. Right? I can observe Isaac sitting here. I'm not Isaac. Isaac is not Jeff. I can observe him. Now, if we begin to recognize that we can do the same things with all of our emotions and all of our thoughts, then we also recognize that those emotions and thoughts come together for a period of time and then cease to exist. Just like Isaac sat down here for a period of time, and then this moment of sitting here will cease to exist. So it comes together for a very short period of time and goes away. These are all of our thoughts and all of our emotions coming together for a period of time and then going away. But when we carry them around and we give them power and we give them fuel and we think we are them, then we become the people who all raised our hands at the start of whatever question I asked, right? Become the observer of your thoughts, and your thoughts will not ruin you. Become the observer of your emotions, and your emotions will not ruin you. Understand that they're just passing. They are, in Buddhism, what we call impermanent. Just like everything else that comes together for a period of time and ceases to exist. And if we can begin to really understand that, I think the most important start is to begin to realize that the thoughts are impermanent. That's where all of our misery lies. I mean, even if you have someone in your life who's really difficult or challenging or, really kind of pushes your buttons and drives you crazy, which I won't do a show of hands again, but I'm pretty sure what the answer to that would be, right? We begin to recognize that it is not actually that person or that place or that job or that thing or whatever that is driving you crazy. It is your thoughts about that person or place or thing. So when we see a person or place or thing that we dislike or challenges us, we have thoughts. And if we can begin to recognize that those thoughts are impermanent and will pass, we don't fixate on them. Now, that doesn't mean that that person, place, or thing that you dislike it doesn't mean you're automatically just going to start loving them just because you don't fixate on the thoughts. But the practice is to recognize that they're not the problem, or it is not the problem. Your thoughts are the problem. You observe the thoughts about the person, place, or thing, and then you apply what in Buddhism we refer to as compassion, and you begin to have compassion for the person, place, or thing that is driving you crazy. You don't get wrapped up in your thoughts. You apply compassion, let's say, towards them, towards a person that troubles you, and you recognize that they too are struggling. And that's how you go through your day without anyone in the world bothering you, ever. Two things. The thoughts are impermanent, and have compassion for them. Again, that doesn't mean you need to make them your best friend and hang out with them all day long. just debating on whether or not I want to say the normal stuff I say after meditation, but I don't think so. Don't complicate this practice. Sit, breathe, observe your thoughts. Don't run with them, right? And realize that you can do that your whole day. Whether you're sitting, as the Buddha said, sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. I've always taken that as a metaphor to just recognize that everything you're doing your entire life is a meditation practice. It's an opportunity to become present with the breath, sensation of breath, and be present with things as they are. And the dangerous part, maybe danger is not the best word, but the dangerous part is that when we think our thoughts are reality, we can create a whole big mess in our head. So, learn to observe. And understand that however you might feel now after meditation practice, whether you feel pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, we could do another meditation practice 10 minutes from now and it'll be a completely different experience. Sometimes you sit and, it's great. Sometimes you sit and maybe it's worse. Sometimes you sit and it's like just blah. But each time you're just sitting. And each time you sit as if you've never sat before. When I say sit, I mean meditation. Do a meditation as if you've never done it before. And then you begin to carry this into your life. And then whatever it is you're doing, regardless of where it is or what you're doing, treat it as if you've never done it before. That's what we call the beginner's mind. Embrace each moment as if you've never experienced it before, even if you've done it over and over and over again. Because if you have a situation in your life that you've done over and over and over again, chances are you've built up a lot of stories. Think of a person in your life that frustrates you. Now think of how many years you've been telling yourself stories to yourself or others or them about that person. Now imagine approaching that person as if they're actually a human being who also suffers and as if you've never encountered them before. It changes. What I'm talking about is not simple. It's not easy. It's not, a 6-week course and then everything is fine. It's why we call it a practice. To have compassion for those who frustrated, irritated you, harmed you, or whatever you want to say is not easy. But if you stop telling yourself the story about the person, you have a chance. You really do. And that includes the story that you're telling yourself about yourself. That story is also not real. You're probably a lot kinder, gentler, and better of a person, or whatever words you want to use, than the story you've been telling yourself about yourself for a long time. So abandon that story. So I think I'll stop there and just open up to questions. I always prefer to spend the rest of the time responding to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address. Yeah.
I get that the emotion is impermanent, and and also observing the emotion is a good way to experience to let that emotion pass. The trouble I have is with the compassion piece when the thoughts have migrated from resentment to anger to just outright hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you pull back from that point, that seething?
Seething, wow, that's a heavy word. So if I'm understanding you correctly, just to kind of throw it back before I comment on it. What I think you're saying is you understand observing the thoughts, observing the emotions, right? That part you understand.
Yeah, I'm very clear about that.
You're very clear about it, and at times you're able to even do it once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if you said that, but I'm just, giving you the benefit of the doubt. But your real question is the problem you have with having compassion for those you have hatred towards.
Yeah, there comes a point where it seems almost irreversible.
Yes, it does. But it's not. It seems that way. And it seems that way because that's the story you tell yourself day in and day out. And that's why it seems that way.
Change the story.
Is that a question or is that your response?
That's the question.
That's a question. Change the story. Well, let me put
Change
it.
the story or giving up the story.
What was the thing you said before giving up the story? Change the story or giving up the story?
Yeah.
I would choose either or both, right? Change the story and then give it up. Give it up, then change it. Either way. I think the most important part of what you just said is that as long as you recognize that if you keep telling the same story, you're never going to have compassion for somebody you have hatred towards. Right?
Or clarity in my part of it.
Or clarity in your part of it.
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. So you're actually recognizing that the person that you have hatred towards, you might have had something to do with it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't even going there, but since you made it so simple, right? That's great. So yes, there's that too, is to recognize that we have potentially a small piece that we have played in the dynamics we've had with others that led to feelings of hatred or whatever it may be, right? But I think I don't think that's the hardest part. I think even just the way you brought it up, you recognize, and when you said, oh yeah, you recognize you clearly have a role here, right? But I don't think that's the challenge from what you're saying. I think the challenge is to recognize that, again, when I look at the Buddhist teachings and I recognize that all of our thoughts create our reality. So all of your thoughts and the story that you have towards this person, that has become your reality. So definitely try to change the story. Definitely try to abandon the story. And definitely try to recognize that they also suffer. And they've experienced pain and loss and trauma and difficulties in their life. And they had a part to play in this dynamic. What are you going to say?
Oh, yeah, I recognize their suffering. I just don't want them to smear it on me.
Well, fair enough. But nobody can smear suffering on you. What you're referring to as smearing their suffering on you, when I hear that, what I hear is they are in pain and they are hurting. And their expression of pain and hurt towards you, you are then allowing it to become smeared on you. They're just in pain.
Okay.
I'm okay with okay.
I
Right?
can run with that.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like they're hurting.
Yeah.
You know why they're hurting? Because they're human. The first thing the Buddha said, you've been around here long enough to know, the first thing the Buddha said is life is filled with what? Suffering. So, you look at the mathematical equation that says life is filled with suffering, that since they're human, they're going to suffer. So they're hurting, they're in pain. Now, the story that you tell yourself is that they're smearing their, suffering on me. No, they're not. They're expressing their pain. And the story is you think it's all about you, as opposed to recognizing it's all about them.
Yeah.
So simple to do, so I'm glad we're clear. Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah. Other thoughts, questions? That's a really hard one because we always, I shouldn't say we always, I don't even know who we are, but often humans like to think that all of our problems are someone else's fault. And this is where I think the compassion comes in, that you understand that, as I just said, they're just suffering. Our response to their suffering, that's what we own. We own that part. We can't own their suffering. Yeah.
Sometimes I think that I hang on to stories to kind of protect myself from being hurt again.
Sure. You
But
probably
hanging on to
do.
the stories hurts me.
Well, that's where I was going. Thank you for making it easy for me. That's where I was just letting you finish. What was the second part you just said, so I don't have to point it out to you?
Hanging up to the stories hurts me daily.
Hurts you daily, and that's exactly where I was going. So the first part is sometimes you think you hang on to the story to protect yourself from not being hurt again. Valid, fair, wise. Right? Stove is hot. Put my hand on a stove for the first time ever, and I realize, wow, that burns my hand. That tells me stop putting my hand on the stove. Beginner's mind doesn't mean you walk up every single day without recognition that the stove is burning. Right? You have an awareness of it. But what you're doing with the story is the stove is off, and you're still putting your hand on a burning stove every single day. I'll say that a little simpler.
It's like I can't even hear you. Now what I was thinking is that other times the hurt is absolutely gone. The people are gone.
Totally.
And I hang on to the story to be right about it.
Correct. You're making this so easy. Right? You're right. But this is really important to understand. That's exactly what happens, is that the person could be completely out of your life. But 30 years later, you're still holding on to that story. And that story is what's hurting you. Right? People hurt. We hurt from our relationships with people. This is the human experience. We have good relationships and bad relationships with, loving, intimate partners, strangers, right? Colleagues, classmates, whatever it might be. We have relationships with all kinds of people. And the ones that hurt us, that we hurt the most from are the ones we've had the closest relationships with usually. And that's because we had some expectation of what we wanted from them. Complete stranger hurts you, it's not a big deal so much. You're kind of over it. You're probably not talking still about the stranger that hurt you 30 years ago that you don't know. Because you didn't have any expectation of them. But you had a huge expectation of these other people. And whatever they chose to do didn't align with what you wanted. And years later, you've told yourself so many stories. And again, I'm just rephrasing what I think I saw you just realize, is that yes, you are the one torturing yourself over and over and over again with a story that is not even relevant anymore. Nor is it here. And you're carrying it with you.
And how do you just say, okay, I'm not going to think that anymore?
That's where the practice of meditation comes in. Truly. It's a practice, right? It isn't like, okay, like, so I can see from the look on your face, you're having this like realization, like, oh my God, I've been carrying this story around with me for a long time, and it's not even happening anymore.
And I don't want to forget it.
And you don't want to, so let me go back to that. The important part of meditation and training the mind to be present is not that you have to forget the past, or that the past didn't happen, or that it's not important to realize it, for the very reason that the first thing you said, which is so you don't make, so you learn from each experience, right? Again, the stove being hot, stop touching it. But learning to have the ability, so without looking right now, can you see what's on the wall behind you?
No.
No. Is it still there?
Yes.
Yes, now turn around. Look at the wall. What do you see?
Windows.
Windows, great, that's enough. Now turn and look this way. Do you see the windows anymore?
Yes, I can.
You can see them in the back of your head,
No, in my mind.
in your mind, right? Give that about 3 minutes or 30 seconds and you won't see them anymore. Unless for the next 15 years, you start playing the image of windows in your head. And then that image will be burned into your mind. That's what we do with things that hurt us. We burn them into our minds. And the training of the mind to be present is cutting through that burning. It is a practice. You can always look at what's on the wall behind you when you want to. But the practice is to learn to stay present here, now. That's why, be here now, all these kind of comments, they're great expressions, but what the heck do they even mean? Learn to stay in the present moment. I am sitting, I am breathing. This is the only thing that is happening right now. And as your mind wanders to something that's painful from the past, which it will, okay, there's that pain, I shouldn't do that again, back to the present moment. Not there's that pain, I shouldn't do it again, and 3 hours later you're sitting there, 5 bottles of wine into it, still thinking about it.
Thank you.
That make sense? Really difficult. The windows will be out of your head as long as I stop talking about them.
As long as I keep getting older.
Well, yeah, memory does, yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
When you said thoughts and emotions become your reality, am I right to assume that there really isn't an objective reality then?
Well, I don't want to say you're right ever, because that would infer that there was some sort of ultimate, like objective reality if I said you're right. Right?
Yes,
Right,
correct.
So I can't say you're right and I can't say you're wrong. That would defeat the entire purpose of your question. Right? You found that funny. There is, and this came up again recently as well, last week I think it was, but there is ultimate reality and conventional reality. Conventional reality is how we identify with things throughout our day, and that's how we function. Ultimate reality is that we're only using things as we see them. But forget that example. Ultimate reality, conventional reality is what you're asking about. And I think it's important to understand that everything you perceive is only your perception. It's not ultimate truth. It's not ultimate reality. It's only your perception.
And how do you differentiate between what you're perceiving and what you're believing is ultimate reality?
Start by recognizing that everything you perceive is not ultimate reality. And do that for about 17 lifetimes. Or at least start for 17 minutes. Honestly, begin to recognize, do you walk around all day thinking everything you're seeing is, do you think you're right a lot?
Is
Okay.
real.
So that's real. What is that though?
To me, it's a chair.
To you, it's a chair. Now you're starting to get this, right? Now, what if I turned it upside down and, put 4 basketballs on each of the 4 legs and started spinning them? Is it still a chair? Or is it something that spins basketballs? And when does the chair stop becoming a chair?
I think is what it does.
I don't know. The point is to recognize that what you see something as is not what it is. It's only how you use it. Right? These are not wood chairs, but let's say they were. Okay? We have some wood chairs over there. So we think it's a chair, but it's made out of wood. Where's the wood come from?
A tree.
Tree. Where's the tree come from?
A seed.
A seed, the earth, the sun, the water, right? All this kind of stuff that made the tree. Somebody went up and unfortunately chopped it down and turned it into wood, right? Turned it into a chair, but maybe that was their job and that fed their family and that gave them, that was their work and that fed their family and that they were able to survive and eat because they made chairs and sold chairs, right? But what do? We just come up and sit on it. We don't think about all the things that touched the life of that wood chair. So it's more than just a chair. Right? Endless causes and conditions came together to create that chair. To us, we just use it how we want it. And unfortunately, this kind of going back to some of the other questions is what we do with people. Right? We just see people and we use them how we want to use people. We don't understand where they came from, what they've gone through, how, if they were the chair, we don't understand what made them. We just see them as these physical things that we just want to use and put into our lives, right? We don't necessarily understand what's really going on there. You know? Start with understanding that your reality is not ultimate truth. Don't search for what ultimate truth is. Begin to understand that your reality is not ultimate truth. And work backwards from there. But that's just my perception. Yeah, I think I saw a hand or no? Okay. Other questions? We'll do about one more or so before we wrap up. Yeah.
So say we come here striving, working diligently to change, to be different, to have that loving kindness. And we're human, so the other humans around us are like, you're the same. Nothing's changed about you. How do you carry that? How do you?
So I think what you're asking is how do you deal with other people's judgments of you?
I guess so, yeah.
I don't care what anybody thinks about me. That's their mess, not mine. Right? I got enough to deal with in my own life. Why am I also going to carry what other people think about me? Right? Have you had thoughts about you your whole life? About perceptions and judgments of yourself? Has that been hard enough to deal with your whole life?
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. So why are you going to now add on what everybody else thinks about you? Doesn't sound like fun to me. Right? So it's not just about, like, your question, which is great. It's, you know, you were saying, like, you come here, learn the practice, you know, we're human, we want to be kinder, gentler, more compassionate people. And you're working on it diligently, and it's hard. It's not easy. You don't hear it's easy because people will be nice to you for an hour. As soon as you walk outside that door, it's not going to be that way. Right? So it's the first part of your question, I think, is really great, is that you're working on it. And then you're really concerned about other people who might be judging you and saying it's not working. Well, you're here, so something's working. You're still working at it. You're still trying. If you've been a mean, angry, pissed off person for 30 years, it's going to take more than 3 months to change that, right? But my suggestion would be, I always come back, I think all the Buddhist teachings come back to the Four Noble Truths, truly. Right? Life is filled with suffering, the first one. Doesn't mean all life sucks if you're brand new, Paul. Doesn't mean this whole path is about, you know, this stuff sucks. It just means that you're going to suffer a lot in your life, right? We're here Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. We have figured that out by now. That's no joke. We will experience suffering. The second one is the cause. The cause of suffering, they call the three poisons: greed, anger, ignorance. Greed, right? It's greedy to think that people aren't going to judge you. You already know people are going to judge you. The anger kicks in because you're angry at how they're judging you. And the ignorance kicks in because you're telling yourself that it actually means something. It means nothing. So don't expect people to greed to not judge you. They're absolutely going to judge you. Now I get it, you never judge anyone, so I understand that's difficult, being a person who doesn't judge anyone, right? Don't be angry at them when they do, because they're suffering in their own mess also. And ignorance. I usually, because how I learned ignorance is not like to, you know, it's not like ignoring so much, it's just recognizing that, you know, everything is different from how we perceive it to be, but kind of ironically, I think having the word ignore in this example, ignore them. People challenge you and they're like, this stuff ain't working. Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts. And in that response, that right there shows you that it's working. But you're not doing this. I mean, in some cases we do this for others. I get that. Like we're doing this so we're kinder, gentler people with others. But this path, this practice is for you, not to prove anything to anyone. So when they say it's not working, thank you for your thoughts. I appreciate that. Or you can yell at them. All right. So, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, tough. Greed, anger, ignorance towards everything. You know? I think the Buddha was a pretty smart person. And he said all suffering comes from greed, anger, ignorance. So anytime you suffer, anytime you struggle, anytime you have challenges, difficulties in your life, whatever they may be, just stop for a minute and say, where's the greed? Where's the anger? Where's the ignorance? And then you overcome these three things with generosity, compassion, and wisdom. So I'm going to be generous and allow them to judge me because that's what people do. I'm going to be compassionate towards them when they judge me because that's what people do. And I'm going to be wise enough to know that their judgment of me means nothing. So, simple enough. Paul, we good?
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure. All right, we'll join palms. Okay, the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Paul and those who need it most. May they all be free from suffering.